This is a very easy case. The problem that most criminals have, or alleged criminals have, is they use this right here to do everything. It's not hard to put all this stuff together.
As the host of the Sit Down, a Crime History podcast, which he has on YouTube. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. That's JEFFNADU. He did a spectacular episode, and he has done subsequent ones on the NBA betting scandal and both the poker scandal as well, which obviously broke 1 week ago today. He did it so systematically, he did it so deliberately that it is a perfect way for people to understand all the details and nuances of both indictments. Jeff Nadu joins us now. Nadu joins us right now, courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. How you doing, Jeff? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Jeff.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate the kind words from both of you. Means a lot. And thanks for having me on.
And Bill, thank you for making it happen.
Oh, yeah. No. Jeff's been on my podcast. And just to let people know out there, I watch his show. It's called The Sit Down on YouTube. I watch his show, and his knowledge of getting people to talk is just his knowledge of the mafia industry, of this poker scandal, of this basketball scandal. Getting people to talk. I just finished his one that he did yesterday with one of the poker players that were in these games and playing with some of these names. It was fantastic. But the one I'm referring to was 4 days ago. His breakdown of the indictments was the most thorough thing.
Yes.
I had guys from back home that are mob. I have a mob historian that I know up in Scranton. He has books. He has videos. He has hundreds of books, maybe 1,000. He's the one that really said, you have to listen to this episode. It's unbelievable.
I've listened to it.
There's so much nonsense and clickbait out there.
Yes.
Italian, mafia, big names. They try to sensationalize their BS information for more clicks, likes, and whatever. And Jeff pointed that out.
Well, this is my first question, Jeff, because for people who want to deep dive into all the details and all the characters, I point you to Jeff's podcast to do so because it's great. But that's the first question. What Bill brings up is the sensationalizing of this. So you really do a great job of saying there's a lot of noise here. One, the mafia, the Cosa Nostra, the mob, not involved at all on the NBA betting side of things, just the poker side. Also, the mob not involved in all the poker stuff, just the games that were in New York. Is it your opinion that Kash Patel and the feds basically threw everything into one bucket in that initial press conference to kind of muddy it up and to sensationalize all of this?
For sure. I mean, and it's not just Kash Patel's administration. This has been going on for years. This goes into even local police departments. There's a show called The Wire where they literally highlight this on a daily episode basis. Way back many years ago, the dope on the table, that's what they want. They want the big headlines, the photo ops, and the mafia and the NBA and all this stuff goes hand in hand. You could throw it in one indictment and it looks great to everyone. And it's become an international story. I talked to someone this week that is in that cohort, the Cosa Nostra, as you said. And they would tell me that a lot of the old timers are very pissed off about this case because without Billups and without the NBA, this is a random case that I'm talking about only. What's amazing, Gill and Bill, is that over the last 6 months to a year, there have been multiple cases involving poker, sports betting with the five families, and no one's really talked about it. But the sensationalism makes this case, appointment viewing for most.
Yeah, and when you also point out, in addition to the mafia not being involved in the sports betting side, for people who got that twisted, or not only in the only poker ones that they're involved in, poker games that they were involved in, were the New York ones cited in the indictments, but that Chauncey Billups himself never had, to the indictments detailing, any direct contact with anyone in the mafia. It's a separate thing as well. I'm curious then, getting to the point of why is fascinating to me, which is Terry Rozier on the betting side. Let's focus on the betting side, and in the case of Billups on both. But Terry Rozier obviously has a nearly $100 million contract, Jeff. Why would he do this? Why would he, as you outline, rely on a friend to then pass on information about him? Hey, I'm going to come out of this game early, pass that information on to bettors, then they take the proceeds back, they split them up. Why would Terry Rozier get involved in this? And then why would Chauncey Billups, right, who passes on information to his, respective cohort, who then passes it on and they profit off of it? And then Chauncey Billups knowingly at a poker game, just to throw that into it as well, Unlike, say, and clearly Chauncey Billups knew something according to the indictment because, as you point out, Kevin Garnett was also present at said poker game, but he's not mentioned in it. Why would people like Billups, who has the Hall of Fame career, and Rozier get involved in this, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's two reasons. Number one, I think it's, if you look at most of these defendants, it's common knowledge and has been common knowledge for years that they like to gamble and play poker. Damon Jones has played poker for years. Mr. Billups has played poker for years. All you have to do is look at the dates in this indictment. I mean, some of these dates go back 6, 7 years. And when we look back at even the Jontay Porter case, there's a lot of reason to believe that the reason Jontay Porter did what he did is because he owed money to some of the defendants in this case. So these are all people that know each other. I mean, you guys like to gamble. I like to gamble. And when you make more money, you start betting more money, right? I remember when I first started gambling, I didn't bet that much. Now I make money. I've started betting more. And it just gets more and more out of hand. It wouldn't surprise me if most of the people in this indictment owed money to certain people and they said, look, we'll fix it this way. We'll do what we have to do. We'll get you some info. No one will ever find out. They assume nothing will work. And little did they know, the problem that most criminals have or alleged criminals have is they use this right here to do everything. And they then use payment apps and text messages and all that sort of thing. And it all just melts together. This is a very easy case. Once it's delivered to you, it's not hard to put all this stuff together, grab some cell phone and text records, subpoena some payment companies, and it's all pretty much there. I mean, guys, in one part of this indictment, Damon Jones basically says to one of the defendants, make sure you bet enough so D. Jones can eat too. They then pay him right away.
Yeah. I'm only laughing because you did such a great job of putting up the screenshots of the texts.
Of the indictments.
You have all the receipts, as the kids say. It's really a fascinating thing. And the only distinction, right, that you would agree that the Jontay Porter thing, people can understand that easier, though, because Jontay Porter made, $400,000 a year. He got into debt, and so this was his way of getting out of it. We have no such salary, limitations on Rozier or Billups, nor do we have any knowledge of them being underneath any pressure. They just decided, as you said.
Gill,
yeah.
The thing is, a lot of the people in this indictment are betting and have been not wagering, but playing poker for years. I mean, some of these games they're playing at, there's a lot of money on the table. This isn't, 5 cents, 10 cents with your friends. This is 50, 100. This is a lot of the time PLO, pot limit Omo, which is very action packed. There's a ton of action in those games. I just think it kind of adds up. I mean, it's hard for someone to get their hands on, even that makes a ton of money, let's say $1 million liquid to send to some random person. I think a lot of the time it's just simple backroom deals like, hey, just do this, do that. No one will ever find out and it'll help us. Your debt will be resolved. I'm not saying every person in this indictment owed something, but most of the people, there is a history of them gambling and or playing poker over the years.
And this just in, people love to gamble. Do you think this, I'm sort of asking you to speculate here. Do you think this harms the NBA anyway long term, or do you think this will just kind of get swept under the carpet?
Well, I think Adam Silver has a lot of questions to answer as to how his security and investigations uncovered nothing. It's kind of a bad look when you do an investigation, you say you find nothing, and then the feds drop an indictment. I mean, that doesn't look real
Very
good. I think to think that there's no one else that's doing this is, I think, probably pretty unlikely. I know, and again, I'm not going to say it on here because I can't put 2 and 2, but there were surprises that I thought there would be other people in this indictment that I've heard things about over the years. I think college sports has a real big problem, and they better hope that an indictment doesn't come out there, because I've heard of this pretty pervasive as far as the sports betting side in college. It wouldn't surprise me if it's going on this year. You have to look back, guys, to a couple of years ago. There were multiple investigations into various college programs. Temple, there was that wild game where there was a 14-point swing in the line. Mm-hmm. North Carolina A&T was looked into. New Orleans University was looked into. There have been all sorts of investigations. And the question is that building in something like this that comes out several years later? In this case, though, the feds were given this by a source. Okay, you don't just stumble upon this. And I'm doing the research behind that as to who I believe that is. There is a particular person in this indictment that it's common knowledge is an informant.
Hang on,
there's paperwork on it.
Jeff, do me a favor. Could you hang on? We'll continue this after the break, because Jeff does name that person in his brilliant podcast again, which I invite you to check out. More with Jeff Nadu on the other side, right here on A Numbers Game. Jeff Nadu, who is kind enough to join us again here for a few more minutes, host of the Sit Down, a crime history podcast. He's on Twitter at Jeff Nadu, Jeff with a J, and then last name Nadu. The specific episode of his Sit Down, a crime history podcast that I'm referring to, or that we're referring to, is Mafia, Illegal Poker in the NBA, New Details Revealed. That was 4 days ago, but he has done related podcasts since. Jeff, thanks for sticking around. I know you're not a judge, I know you're not a jury, but you've delved in this sort of world for some time now, and I'm curious your instincts on this, because my sort of layman's takeaway is, okay, the poker stuff, I think Chauncey Billups is in trouble, right? If they've pinpointed him as a guy who knew that these games were rigged and have by omission said these other guys didn't know, but Chauncey did, that sounds bad. On the basketball side and the Terry Rozier sports betting side, I'm curious if you feel the same way. I feel like Terry Rozier has some plausible deniability in the fact that, yes, he had a friend that he said he was, okay, let's say he said, oh yeah, I'm hurt, I'm going to be out. He could probably take the side of things. I'm not saying it's completely believable, but work with me here. He could say, hey man, yeah, I'm hurt, I don't know if I'm going to play tonight, right? That could be his take. Also, if you look at Terry Rozier's game log, he sits out the next 5 games, I think, something like that. So it's not like it was just that one night. Do you agree with that he has some kind of plausible deniability in this?
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit it on the head, because again, a lot of these guys have friends, that move, they know different people. I think the problem that Rozier will have is obviously if more stuff comes out in terms of maybe money was dropped off. I've heard rumors of that. But then again, there's also, as you said, plausible deniability that he just said, hey, I'm injured, and they went with it and did what they wanted. And throw in the fact that the feds are not completely unbeatable. It's pretty unlikely. And a lot of the times people will just plea so they don't have to go to trial, because when you go to trial, you need a miracle a lot of the time. I know people personally that I've spoken to that pled guilty, even though they told me, Jeff, beyond a reasonable doubt, I did not do this, but I can't prove I didn't do it. So I just pled guilty and took the year or two they were going to give me instead of getting 10. So some people do that. In this case, though, Terry has probably a very good lawyer, a good attorney. And we have seen, and this goes back to the first question you discussed, the Eastern District is full of obsessive behaviors over headlines. They overcharged a person like Diddy, and they lost because of their overcharging. So, maybe including 1 or 2 extra people in this just for headlines, it could go back to bite them. Most of the people in this case or cases will plead guilty. I think Rozier, if anybody, would probably take it to court on really what you said, and maybe you should become an attorney, because that's a pretty good defense, I think, right there.
Yeah, but because the other thing is, we saw this report of, Terry, we talked about this yesterday, Terry Rozier had this $8 million tax lien, and his lawyer is very clear about saying, that's a nothing burger. Like, all of it's been paid, but like $9,000 on there. But that's the way that the IRS phrases stuff like that. And by the way, that $9,000's been paid off. So that's not a thing. So like, they have some defenses.
What Jeff is saying there is also true. And it comes over to the sports betting world. We know people like Spanky, like Billy Walters. They have pleaded to things they didn't do, like bookmaking, because the government did not understand what bookmaking was, and they just charged them with bookmaking or promoting gambling. And they said, listen, you're not going to do no jail time, but if you plead to this. And instead of going to court, spending hundreds of thousands more, they just pled to something they did not do, just to avoid the gambling, just to avoid the more sensationalized press, and they just literally plead out just to avoid saving money.
And that's
go ahead, yeah, Jeff.
And that's why when you hear the 98% conviction rate, that's true, but 85% of that is probably just people pleading that don't want to go to court, because what the feds will do is use you as an example, and they will hit you real hard because they had to work extra hard in a trial.
Jeff, I can't thank you enough. And listen, and in this brief little format that we have here, I can't possibly do justice. I hope people realize this. I hope this whets your appetite. We can't possibly do justice to how good the podcast that Jeff did, the Sit Down, a crime history podcast, systematically, deliberately going by, indictment by indictment, person by person, co-conspirator by co-conspirator, just what was alleged, what was not alleged, which is just as important as what was alleged. You do a bang-up job, man. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. And I will tell you guys, I got a video that's going to come out Saturday about one of the people in this case that I believe is the conduit and the person that has conducted everything behind the scenes, that I think served this case up on a silver platter to the feds. So I'm working on that. So yeah, I appreciate your kind words, and it was nice to come on and talk to you guys.
Last thing though, because you mentioned this now, it just occurs to me, because we talked about this off air, but not on air. You're cool with doing all this? Like you're not worried about yourself naming names and because I know it's out there in indictments, right, but you really drive it home on some of this. Doesn't bother you?
No. I mean, I've talked about the Mafia for 4 years, and look, I'll tell you, there are certain people that don't like it per se, but I got to tell you, criminals are generally pretty arrogant. They like the fact that people talk about them. Most gangsters, they don't want to be a gangster if no one knows who they are. So I've had people tell me some wild things about, the watching of my videos, how they watch it with their girlfriends and things like that. So yeah, I think most gangsters want to be that bad boy type. Most of the people in this indictment are extremely arrogant. They are still selling pics as we speak. So yeah, I don't think they care. I think they like the fact that people know them as kind of this outlaw type. So no, I have a good security system.
And before we go,
he's got a good security system.
And before we go, though, now that we touched on this, there's more rats today that have podcasts and have things. So why should Jeff worry when you have Sammy the Bull, Michael Franchise, these guys have the 302s have been revealed. There's more rats out there talking about things and openly being arrogant, giving speeches, showing up at places.
That's the thing. That's the most interesting thing about it. That ego, right? The human condition of ego overrides it in some of these cases with these guys. They want to be known. They want to be known. Jeff, thank you. Appreciate
Jeff.
it, man. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.